Stories of the past aren't lost, but simply waiting to be revisited. Once upon a time, during its early history, America was a series of British colonies on the eastern coast of the present-day United States. American literature often explores themes like the American dream, individualism, the frontier, and social justice. American dream is the belief that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through hard work and determination, while individualism and self-reliance celebrates the strength and independence of the individual. However, the frontier, both a physical place and a metaphorical one, is crucial. It represents a place of opportunity and escape, but also of danger and moral ambiguity. The last one is social justice. From the very beginning, American literature has been a vehicle for social critique. American literature has evolved through distinct periods that correspond to major historical shifts. First is the oral tradition in the Native American period, or in pre-16th century. Before colonization, the land's original inhabitants, the Native Americans, had rich oral traditions of storytelling and mythology that explained their origins and values, because long ago, every song and story was a living thing, passed down through generations by unknown authors from the word of mouth.
But as time turned, a new kind of story began to arrive with the ships. With the arrival of European colonists, the focus of literature shifted from the oral traditions to written accounts. We look at Captain John Smith, for example, because he represents this shift. His writings were among the very first to describe the new land of European audience.
By the way, who is Captain John Smith? Captain John Smith was an English explorer, soldier, and writer, best known for his role in establishing the first permanent English settlement in North America, Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607. Question: why is it important that Captain John Smith wrote down his account of Virginia instead of just telling the story? Yes, pretty girl from the third column, fourth row. That's because writing preserved the story, and writing allowed it to be spread to a wider audience and create a historical record. Colonial literature was dominated by practical, religious, and political writings. It includes the accounts of explorers, the religious sermons of Puritans, and the political arguments of the Founding Fathers. That is why authors from this era are important, because they show how religious beliefs and the struggle for independence shaped American literature. The first significant and influential author is Anne Bradstreet. She is featured because she was a pioneer in a strict Puritan society that believed women were inferior. Her poetry explored themes of faith and domestic life. Her work defied expectations and became a symbol of a woman's voice in a world that tried to silence it. Anne Bradstreet's works, such as The 10th Muse lately sprung up in America in 1650, and her posthumous poems like Contemplations, are examples of the theme individualism and self-reliance. The second one is Jonathan Edwards. He is a key figure because his sermons, like Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, capture the powerful religious fervor of the Great Awakening. His use of vivid, fear-inducing imagery to compel people to believe is a rhetorical strategy we still see today in everything from political speeches to marketing campaigns. Jonathan Edwards' work, such as The Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God in 1741, is an example of the theme individualism and self-reliance. Finally, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine are essential because their pamphlets and writings were not just stories, but tools that shaped public opinion and ultimately led to the American Revolution. The 18th century. This new period, called Romanticism, It celebrated emotion and the individual. Washington Irving is a short story author and essayist. Washington Irving's works, such as Rip Van Winkle in 1819 and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow in 1820, are examples of the theme, the frontier in individualism. Edgar Allan Poe is an American writer, poet, and literary critic. Edgar Allan Poe's poems such as The Raven in 1845 and The Murders in the Rue Morgue in 1841 are examples of the theme, the frontier in individualism. Washington Irving and Edgar Allan Poe are crucial romantic writers because they helped establish American literature as a legitimate force with stories and poems that gained international acclaim. Harriet Elizabeth Beecher Stowe was an American author and abolitionist. She came from the religious Beecher family and wrote the popular novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1852 is an example of the theme social justice. Harriet Beecher Stowe and Nathaniel Hawthorne are highlighted because they used their writing to expose the darker sides of American society and human nature. Realism and naturalism. After the Civil War, literature shifted to portray life as it really was, focusing on social realities. Mark Twain's work is a perfect example of this. Mark Twain is Samuel Langhorne Clemens. He adopted the pen name Mark Twain while working as a newspaperman in Nevada. The name comes from a river term, meaning for 12 feet of water depth, a depth that indicated a safe passage for steamboats. His most well-known books include The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and travelogues like Life on the Mississippi. Now let's proceed to the modernism in the 19th century. In World War I, in the industrial age led to a sense of fragmentation and disillusionment. Modernist writers responded by experimenting with narrative forms and exploring themes of alienation and loss. The Harlem Renaissance, a key part of this era, celebrated African American culture and identity. Edward Eastling Cummings, commonly known as E. E. Cummings, was an American poet, painter, essayist, author, and playwright. Now let's proceed to the period of postmodernism and contemporary. In the 1940s up to present, following the World War II, literature became more skeptical and playful. Writers began to question grand narratives and blur genres, reflecting the complexities of a media-saturated world. Now, let's talk about Edward Eastling Cummings' Somewhere I Have Never Traveled. Somewhere I have never traveled, gladly beyond. These words open one of the most delicate, mysterious, and heartfelt love poems of the 20th century. Written by E. E. Cummings, a poet known for breaking rules and reshaping language, this poem is not just about romance. It's about the quiet power one person can have over another, without force, without reason, just presence. Today, let's travel gladly and beyond into this remarkable poem. At first glance, this poem might seem like a riddle wrapped in emotion. Somewhere I have never traveled, gladly beyond any experience. What does that mean? Cummings begins by telling us he's going somewhere he's never been. Not a place, but a feeling. A space within himself he didn't know existed. And someone, perhaps a lover, has opened that space, not through noise, but through quiet, through presence. Your slightless look will easily enclose me. Imagine being opened like a flower, not by force, but by a whisper. That's the kind of love Cummings speaks of. A love so deep it defies understanding. And notice his style, the lowercase I, the strange punctuation, the way lines spill unpredictably. This is not laziness. This is intention. Cummings break form to show how love itself breaks form, how it resists logic, structure, control. He uses nature to explain emotion, flowers, rain,
spring, things that bloom, things that move gently and unpredictably, just like the feelings he can't name. One of the most famous lines says, "Nobody, not even the rain, has such small hands. It's soft, intimate, almost impossible to explain. But we feel it, don't we?" This poem isn't trying to explain love. It's showing us how it feels. Fragile, powerful, uncontrollable. E.E. Cummings reminds us that love isn't always grand gestures or loud declarations. Sometimes it's a tiniest movement, a glance, a word, a silence that unlocks us completely. I do not know what it is about you that closes and opens. In the end, we don't need to understand the poem. We just need to feel it. So maybe like the poet, we can learn to go somewhere we've never traveled, to let ourselves be opened by something gentle, quiet, and true. And remember, sometimes poetry doesn't speak to your mind, it speaks to your heart.
Now, let's talk about Edgar Allan Poe.
Now, let's learn about the legacy of Edgar Allan Poe, whose creativity and imaginations continue to inspire readers and writers around the world. Poe was born on January 19, 1809 in Boston and became a famous American writer, poet, editor, and literary critic. He is known as a central figure of Romanticism and Gothic fiction. The parents of Edgar Allan Poe are David and Eliza Poe. Poe has an older brother named Henry Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is credited as one of the first successful practitioners of the short story and the inventor of detective fiction. He also contributed to science fiction. Some of his most famous works include the hunting poem, The Raven, and the intriguing short stories like The Pale Heart and The Fall of the House of Usher. Poe was the first well-known American writer to earn a living solely from writing, despite the financial challenges he faced. His life was marked by personal tragedies, including losing his parents early and the death of his wife Virginia, who deeply affected him until his own death at age 40.
The truth is, the literature and history of any place is not a fixed record, but a living story that must be continually reread and challenged if we ever hope to fully understand its people.